Superman and Lois made a historic twist to the DC Universe hero's story in its latest episode, and I can't help but notice how this presents some truly sad details about Clark Kent and his origin. Superman and Lois Season 4, Episode 7 places a heavy focus on the strain that being Superman has put on all the relationships that the Man of Steel has had. Clark eventually deciding to go public about being Superman in the episode appears to be the end result of these trials, adding some new context to his past and how it led to this point. Theories concerning Superman and Lois ending have circled for some time, and I believe that many may still wind up being correct. However, what is clear is that the vision and the endgame for the show is finally beginning to come into focus. After a truncated version of the story of Superman's death, the show has taken some interesting looks at his identity and how much it means to him. Following much of Smallville discovering Clark's identity, several necessary components of his past are brought strikingly to light that I'm surprised I never thought about before. Superman's origin story often avoids many of its tragedies. The loneliness of Superman growing up as a hero has a lot of different layers. Tyler Hoechlin in his suit in Superman and Lois Season 3. Many iterations of Superman's live-action story have been told in the past, although some tragic parts of that history have not been as explored. Smallville had the time to develop the isolation Clark felt, but gave quick counterpoints to it through his successful, even if intermittently strained, friendships with characters like Lana and Pete. Man of Steel gave perhaps the best look at the loneliness Clark would have felt by exploring his relationship with his father. This carried some dark undertones, as he was forbidden from taking action in many cases. However, with many adaptations involving the hero, a focus on Clark's childhood is often used to center around him learning how to use his powers, and in order to show the compassion of Jonathan and Martha Kentucky. While this makes sense for building the grander story of the hero, it also makes Clark's role in Superman and Lois Season 4, Episode 7 seem all the more sad, as his references to desperately trying to hide his powers since he got them, when he was 4, highlight a tragic part of the character's life that can easily be somewhat overlooked. Indeed, throughout the episode, looks at the hero's past are used to explain a complexity that is at the root of the character. This was not done in any of the Christopher Reeve films or the Brandon Routh version, which, while providing a complex version of the hero, I'd argue they did not meaningfully dive into his genuine loneliness and disconnection from others in the same manner. Superman and Lois underlines how tragic Clark's origin story really is. Clark Kent truly had an isolated and difficult past. Superman and Lois has the time and the context required to explore this theme fully. By expanding Clark's supporting cast, and being able to take time to also explore his humanity and compassion for those around him, examining the darker times in Clark's life becomes manageable without turning the entire project dour. In looking at Superman's childhood and prior relationships with old friends like Jimmy Olsen, and how Clark has had to distance himself from people he cares about, audiences get a more complex portrait of the hero. Clark's biggest secret has been an enormous part of his life, and living with the weight of that has been challenging for the heroic figure. While Clark has had Lois to lean on and depend on, he has been limited in what he has been able to share of himself with others. Even his own sons were not made aware of his secret until they became teenagers, something I find even more heartbreaking now, with the context that this decision would have been partially due to a very young Clark struggling to keep his secret. I'm glad Superman and Lois shows the highs and lows of Superman's childhood. Tyler Hoechlin's Superman is one of the most complex iterations of the character. Superman and Lois has done an excellent job in looking at Clark's entire past, all the way back to the hero's childhood. This is done in flashback sequences and also in conversations that examine the past in discussion with those that he loves. Clark's past has been shown with a keen eye to his loneliness, as the show has given detail about his past friendships with characters, and also the distance he kept from them. His youth then led to a formative disconnection after the death of his father, which pushed Clark onto the path of self-discovery. With Clark's past behind him in Superman and Lois, the creatives behind the series have had the flexibility to examine his past and origins in new and innovative ways that change the character's legacy. In this way, the show provides a different look at Clark Kent's youth to even Smallville, as the latter series being focused entirely on that time period meant it did not always have the same creative freedoms that Superman and Lois has had when it comes to looking at this era of the hero's life.